Howdy folks, this is Brad Apple, and this is my buddy Charley Sandage. Today he's going to talk to us about Jimmie Driftwood.
Jimmy was the real deal, and here's what I mean about that. He was one of the people who kind of sparked that popularity of folk music in the 50s and on into the 60s, that whole movement. He had a lot to do with sparking that interest. But the difference between him and, say, Joan Baez, who came to it as not her out of her roots, she did wonderful stuff and she really learned it and believed in it. Jimmy came from those roots right around here. His daddy, everybody he knew around him, playing traditional music and all of that. And then he went ahead writing in kind of that same vein and genre and became known for that. He grew up the way here in East Richwoods, going up Dodd Mountain. And he went to a little school up there, up to its limits, and then he walked. Gosh, it had to be 10, 12 miles down to a high school in Mountain View. And on through his life, he continued going back to school. He wound up with a master's degree from Vanderbilt in literacy studies. And while he was at Vanderbilt, he made Nashville connections and that sort of thing because he was always writing. I have no idea, and I don't think he ever had any idea, his total song catalog over the years. His style of songwriting was storytelling, which is my favorite style of songwriting. I learned a great deal in the early days at the Folk Center, being able to work with him. My initial job at the Folk Center was kind of an administrator working with the Rackensack Folklore Society for Music and the Craft Guild for Crafts. But I wound up, because Jimmy didn't really want to manage the programs night by night, I wound up kind of doing that. But anyway, I got to learn a great deal from Jimmy, and that's something that I treasure. But he, well, for example, when I say he was part of that 60s music boom, when Alan Lomax, the folklorist collector, son of John A. Lomax, set out on his, quote, southern journey in the mid-60s, going all around the South, collecting all kinds of music, blues, whatever. Jimmy had invited him here to Stone County and said, look, we've got plenty for you to record. And sure enough, Lomax came and Jimmy guided him around and recorded Neil Morris, Jimmy's daddy, and Almeda Riddle, and Ottie Gilbert, and I think Book Miller Shannon, the old fiddlers and banjo players, Seth Mize. I'm pretty sure they're on this. Eventually, that was years later put out in CD form, and out of 16 of those, one entire CD is Stone County, and that's because of a connection that Jimmy made. He's known, of course, for Battle of New Orleans and all of that Stonewall Jackson, I think, had the big hit on it. But he had several successful folk albums released on his own. And he certainly was. There's a long list of people when you talk about the Folk Center. Well, without this person, there's a long list of without that person. But he was the best known. He was sort of the face of the whole process that led to the creation of the Folk Center.